Here's how you've been lied to about cholesterol. In the 1950s, heart disease was rampant in the US comparative to the early 1900s, where heart attacks were practically unheard of, even though egg consumption was 3 times higher than it was in 1956. So what happened? Well, in 1911, Procter & Gamble had just launched their new product, Crisco, which was a cottonseed oil. During this time, animal fats like butter and lard were extremely popular, so in order for Procter & Gamble to succeed with their new business venture, they had to convince the public that Crisco was a better alternative to natural animal fats. Luckily for Procter & Gamble, the American Heart Association hadn't launched yet because they didn't have the funds to do so. So Procter & Gamble had the amazing idea to go to the American Heart Association and say, hey, we will donate $1.7 million or $20 million today to help you launch your organization as long as you can convince the public to use our product. The AHA took the proposal, and in 1924, the American Heart Association became an official organization whose mission was to reduce heart-related deaths. From this point forward, households began replacing animal fats with vegetable oils like Crisco, and heart disease was on the rise. Here comes Ancel Keys, a biologist who wanted to save humanity from this heart disease epidemic. He proposed the diet heart hypothesis in collaboration with the AHA, which suggested that fat was the culprit for coronary heart disease. Mind you, this diet heart hypothesis is the reason why all of us fear saturated fat and cholesterol to this day. Keys found that arterial plaques contain cholesterol, and since animal fats also contain cholesterol, that must mean that cholesterol causes heart disease. Keys based his hypothesis on his infamous 7-country study. What was published in this study showed a tight correlation between fat consumption and heart disease. But get this. Years after his 7-country study was published, it came out that Keys' research was actually done on 22 countries, not 7 like people thought, except Keys excluded 16 countries whose data didn't align with his hypothesis, and the countries' data he did use to show a tight correlation between heart disease and fat consumption was actually according to margarine use. So in other words, the countries that had the highest rates of heart disease were actually consuming the most margarine, and the countries with the lowest rates of heart disease were actually consuming the most animal fat. But when this information came out, it was already too late. In 1961, the American Heart Association recommended that butter should be replaced with polyunsaturated seed oils and animal fats should be avoided at all costs. Then in 1970, the USDA released the horrific food pyramid based on the diet heart hypothesis, which put the nail in the coffin for saturated fat, and our consumption of saturated fat has continued to decrease ever since. The outcome of this, Procter & Gamble went on to make billions of dollars despite being responsible for hundreds of thousands of heart-related deaths. Big Pharma saw record profits, and the American Heart Association revenued hundreds of millions of dollars. Let me know what story regarding meat-based foods I should tell next.